Morning, everybody. This is the geography lesson for the week beginning the 8th of June, and the due date is actually then Friday, the 19th of June. So you have a couple of weeks to complete this particular task. You need to do all of your work in the Google slideshow titled Emergency on Planet Earth, which is attached to this assignment. And anything that you write when you follow the instructions that you'll see in the instruction document should be written in this section down here that I'm just indicating to you with my cursor. So this is where you do your writing, and you put your images and your titles up on the main slide up here. Okay, and you create a slideshow that will look a little bit like the one I'm just about to go through. Please make sure you have opened up the Google Doc with all of the key instructions that tell you what you should be doing, and use my instructions in this lesson to complete each slide. What I also suggest you do is you pause the video after I go through each page and then complete those instructions and then move on to the next one. Okay, so I will indicate when you want to pause this lesson video and then you can complete that each task in turn. So the first thing is going to be to select a global emergency, a planet-wide emergency. And you've got 4 to pick from, which you did last week. These were global warming, plastics in the ocean, or actually pollution in the ocean. It doesn't have to be plastics, pollution in the ocean, desertification, and deforestation. You must pick one of these. You then need a title slide that really has an image that really strongly shows that problem. And you obviously need a title for your problem. So if you've chosen deforestation, for example, you would put deforestation as a title. You must then describe your problem, have a paragraph that describes why it is a problem, and that paragraph should have some facts and figures. Now, you did some research on this last week, so you can use some of the material you gathered last week for this opening paragraph. What is really important, and you'll see this on the instruction document, is that everything you write must be in your own words. There are marks being assigned for how well you write this in your own words, rather than lifting material from the internet. And you'll find you get quite low marks overall if you just rely on lifting information. We're very keen on you actually getting your own work and writing in your own words. We're also quite keen that you think about what images you want to use for each slide, because there are some marks for the suitability of the images you select. So once you completed this first slide, introducing your problem with some facts and figures typed down here, you can move on to your second slide. So you might want to pause now and then come back to this video in a second when you move on to your next task. Okay, the next task is where you are describing where in the world your problem is. For that, you need to find a map. So here I'm doing acid rain, obviously, which is not a problem you're being asked to explore. But if you were doing this, you would find a map that shows where it is a problem, and then you have to describe that map. Now, you did this last week. Describing a map relies on you identifying the regions of the planet where it is a problem. And it's not enough just to say this is a problem in Africa or this is a problem in the Pacific Ocean. You must use the map to identify specific areas across the map. For example, with acid rain, it's clearly a problem on the eastern side of the United States. Across a lot of Europe, especially Northern Europe, it's quite a significant problem. And in this area of Eastern China, we can also see that it is a problem. Down in the southern tip of Africa, we can also see there is an issue. So that's me targeting areas of continents. If this was an ocean issue, then you would obviously be doing the same with that map. Okay, so it's having a map that shows the location of your problem and then writing a paragraph that describes in detail where it is a problem. Right, pause now, complete that little task and move on to the next one. Okay, your next task is describing how your problem has changed over time. You have to find a graph that looks a little bit like this. This is one for acid rain. And your graph needs to have on the x-axis a series of dates that can cover any period of time you want. It could be the last 5 years. It could be the last 1,000 years. The y-axis, that's the vertical one, has to have some figures that show how the problem has changed. So in this case, it's the amount of gases that result in acid rain. That's the graph I've picked. And what you then have to do is write a paragraph that describes the changes. Now, to describe the changes using a graph, there's 2 things that are really important. You must refer to key dates from the x-axis, and you must refer to amounts from the y-axis. So if I was doing acid rain, for example, I would say that in 1880, the amount of this line here, by the way, is sulfur dioxide, which is one of the gases that leads to acid rain. That sulfur dioxide was under 10. It then rose to its first peak in 1940 before falling away to just under 20 in the years after that. But then around about 1945, it then started to rise quickly to a peak in 1980 of over 60. And then it's fallen away in 2000 to under 20, and it continues to drop in 2020 down to 10. You'll notice I've picked the key dates. I've talked about peaks. I've given amounts from my graph. So that's what you should have written here for the graph you've chosen, whatever graph you've chosen to represent the change in your problem over time. Right, pause now and then move on to the next task. Right, in this next task, you're being asked to describe the causes of your problem and then explain them. So if I was to do that for acid rain, I would say the causes are two gases, this one here, NOx and SO2. And that would be me just describing them. If I was to then explain that, I would be saying, well, the reason there are more of these gases is because there are more cars polluting the atmosphere with these gases, which then leads to acid rain. That would be me explaining. Now, the word does say causes. So the four global problems that the one that you've picked, has more than one cause. There are multiple causes. So you have to identify at least two, but please, you're allowed to do more. The 2 is the minimum. You must describe the cause, and then you must explain why it's getting worse or why it is a cause. Okay, you must type this down here, and you'll be marked according to how well you described what's causing your problem and how well you then explained what that's then leading to. Okay, and the because word is always a good one to use because that then reminds you that you are giving a reason. Okay, pause now, do your research, pop it in here, and then unpause for the next section. Okay, we're getting near the end now. You are now onto the effects. The first key thing is about when you're writing about the effects is that is a plural word. So you are being asked to identify more than one effect. So a minimum of 2, but you are allowed to do more, and I would encourage you to do more. You must identify an area of the planet that's being affected by your problem. So not just the whole planet, but target a specific area. You must then give me at least 2, if not more, problems caused by your problem. And then you must explain how that problem affects either people or the wildlife. Okay, so if you're doing acid rain, for example, you might say that acid rain causes trees to die. That would be a describing the problem. And you could then say this is happening in the United States, as shown in the photo. To explain that problem, you could then say that animals that live in these forests therefore lose their habitat and they're likely to die out too. So that would be explaining the effect on wildlife. You could then say also the forestry industry is going to lose trees that it could use for logging, which will affect the profits of logging companies, for example. And that would be how it affects people. So identify at least 2 or more effects and pause the video now, and then we'll move on to the final bit. Okay, your final task is the solutions of acid rain. So here you're being asked to describe at least 2, if not more, solutions, and then explain how they work. How will they help solve the problem that you're studying? So if we look at acid rain, one solution could be to carpool. That is where people driving to work share their cars. So you can see 4 people sharing one car. Now, if they didn't share, all of these people might be in their own car. So that would be 4 cars. Whereas because they're carpooling, that means 1 car. Now, how does that solve the problem of acid rain? Well, fewer cars on the road means less of those gases we identified in the causes, less of these 2 gases. And if there's less of these 2 gases in the atmosphere, then acid rain will be less of a problem. So that is how you would deal with this bit, how it works. So each of the 4 major problems that you're looking at, and of course you're only doing one, the one you've picked, has many solutions available. When you start researching, you'll find there's lots of solutions. You have to identify at least 2, but you can do more, and then you're done. Right, and lastly, the final bit is a bibliography. You can see that I have a bibliography here, and this should have a range of websites that you visited for this project, and we're looking for maybe 3 or 4 at least that you've used and that they were suitable ones for this. So make sure you put the web link in your bibliography. And One final thing, we are marking, of course, everything being written in your own words. So just go back and check that everything you've written is your own words, everything you've typed. And we're also marking your choice of images. So please pay attention to the images you chose. And does the image link to what you have written about? Okay, so good luck with this task. You have till Friday the 19th to complete this and hand it in.